Warning, you may be haunted by some folks' ancestors. Wow. Welcome back, folks, another episode of Viewpoint to Burn Human Podcast. This is episode number 38. And what a week we've had. If someone were to ask me how best I would describe this week what went by, I would definitely say it was probably one of the most emotionally tainted week in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, you've seen so many ridiculous statements being made, and we're gonna have to deal with them. We're gonna have to get into those things in a bit. But before we get into anything, let me first say that this podcast is available on all major podcasting platforms, including iTunes, Google Podcasts, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify. And as I promised, I have this podcast now up on Facebook, so you guys can look out for it on Facebook as well. I'm still developing the whole Facebook account and the whole Facebook page, but I'm getting there. But in the meantime, the podcast will be shared on Facebook as soon as it's published, so you guys can check it out on Facebook. Check out the page as well. See, like and subscribe. That way you know exactly. Well, it's like and subscribe on the other on YouTube and Google and iTunes. The follow on Facebook. Like I said, the whole Facebook thing is new to me, but we'll get there. After we've got the Facebook page where we want to be, the next big step, I'm going to try and get it onto the Instagram as well, so that way we expand and we get more people. And we have been seeing a lot of new listeners coming on since the Facebook page was launched, and we thank those new listeners as well. And while I'm at it, I want to thank all my old listeners and existing listeners, and continue to invite new listeners and continue to share this podcast to everyone. So that's where we're at right now with regards to the whole podcast and development taking place. So now let's get into it right away, and let's just start dealing with all these crazy talk that we've had for this last week. So many of you all would have heard about the tragic news coming out from Saturday. That is to say, the late Senator and former Minister of Energy, Senator Franklin Khan, he would have passed away. And I want to take this opportunity to express my condolences to his family. And I want to say I'm truly sorry for your loss. I also want to let you know that your precious memories of the late senator should be held dear to you. You should hold those memories dear, because at the end of the day, those are the memories that you're going to need, that you're going to hold on to help you get through what is going to be a difficult time. And I hope it won't be a difficult time for you, but nonetheless, those are the memories that you're going to need. Saying those words may seem difficult for some people, depending on who you're speaking about. And I've spoken about that in my last podcast episode as it relates to how some people respond to death or to sickness when it affects them, when it affects those who they support as compared to somebody else. And I've dealt with that in my last podcast episode. And there is something I need to respond to in this episode. My friend Corey Shepherd Bob, his podcast, he has a podcast as well, and you guys can check him out as well. He's available on the same platforms that my podcast is available on, so you guys can check him out as well. He responded to episode 37 statements I made with regards to Clarence Rambert, right? I think it was Camille Rambert was the name. Yeah, statements that I made with regards to her statement about ancestors. And I want to respond to that. At the end of the day, I still think, anyhow, we'll get to that later on. But before we get into all of those stuff, it's not difficult to express condolences to some folks. Sorry, it's not difficult to express condolences when someone lost a family member, a friend, whoever it is. It is difficult for some people to do it because of their affiliations. As I've always said in this podcast, you will not hear me speak ill about anyone's health. I think that should be some form of sacred ground, if any exists at all in Trinidad and Tobago. But the rule that we put down today shouldn't have exceptions to it. And that is what is causing major strife in Trinidad and Tobago. Because, so, as I've always said, and you've always said it on this podcast, different standards lead to distrust. And that is what we're experiencing right now. That is what we've experienced this week, and we're going to experience into the week coming as well. Because there's different standards being applied. But before I go all crazy on that whole system, let me just get off these major points that I think is probably even more important. Because you see, when you have these issues just jumping up, these non-issues jumping up and becoming major issues, they take away from the true issue at hand. They take away from the meat that's on the bone, and they want you to deal with the bone. But at the end of the day, those things are just things that they just throw up in the air so that you can just look at those marvelous things. But it's not the real issue. The real issue is what's taking place with the economy of Trinidad and Tobago, something that I've been constantly dealing with. The real issue is what's taking place with this whole COVID-19 phobia, the lack of management, the lack of policy, vision, foresight for what's taking place with COVID-19. So here we have now, as I mentioned, the Prime Minister was infected with COVID-19. Now, Minister Khan came and he passed away. But we're back in lockdown. We're back in lockdown. As I've said before, when this Prime Minister comes out of his quarantine, he's going to come out with a vengeance. But I was wrong with one regard, because even under quarantine, he still harbors this I don't want to use the word, I don't think the word is hate, but he harbors these vengeful thoughts against the population. Remember when he gave a press conference and he said that we are one fool away from a major lockdown, one fool away from going back into all these restrictions and regulations. Then came the Prime Minister being infected with COVID-19. We are one super spreader away. But it turns out the super spreader was the Prime Minister himself. So where are we at right now? We're at beaches closed. Yeah? The gathering has now been restricted from 10 to 5 persons. No more in-house dining. And what people fail to realize is that the ones who are going to feel the brunt of this is those who have to work. The economy is going to feel the brunt of it, because there's going to be more job loss. And quite frankly, at the end of this 3-week period, I'm not quite sure how many businesses are going to be able to survive. You've seen how many businesses we have lost even during the previous lockdown. And to have a next lockdown when people are now starting to get some cash flows to employ some people, you think those people are going to employ anybody else? Instantly, as soon as those regulations were announced, I am betting my bottom dollar, businesses, food places started to send home their employees that very same day. I'm not quite sure how Trinidad and Tobago is going to, how the economy of Trinidad and Tobago is going to sustain itself from this from this so-called lockdown. So the Prime Minister apparently now is a super spreader, because he was in contact with 35 people, and they all have to be tested, and they all have to be contact tracing have to be done with regards to them. But more than that, no one seems to be asking any question with regards to the late Senator passing. Yes, the late Senator had heart surgery and he was in a compromised position, but is it that him being in contact with the Prime Minister, was any COVID-19 spreading taking place there? Was there a test done on the late Senator? And I saw remarkably when someone in the media asked Dr. Parasaram, the brilliant Dr. Parasaram, the one who's dealing with all of his science, every time we ask a question about what's taking place and what is the government policy on whatever they're doing with regards to COVID-19, they rush to use that word science, Dr. Parasaram, they're following the science, they're following the experts, the medical experts. But Dr. Parasaram, when asked if the late Senator Franklin Khan had contracted COVID-19, said, you need to ask the office of the Prime Minister. That brilliant guy, that so-called brilliant guy, is now shifting the goalpost to the office of the Prime Minister. I have mentioned time and time again on my podcast long ago that Dr. Parasaram and Dr. Trotman, mild COVID-19 person, Dr. Hines, who all of a sudden shift the goalpost as it relates to contact tracing based on the World Health Organization guidelines. These people have lost all professional credibility and should not be taken seriously anymore. They need to resign. But no one is saying anything about these things. We just continue to move on. We continue to go as though nothing is taking place in this whole COVID-19 scenario. The striking thing about all of this is that the policy person, the person who's supposed to be making or who's supposed to be letting the nation know what's going on, is seems to be silent. I want to ask Dr. Parasaram what's going on. Since the Prime Minister was infected with COVID-19, or in some people's mind, allegedly infected with COVID-19, did everyone around him, did the cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago undergo COVID-19 tests? But more than just the cabinet, did the entire opposition undergo COVID-19 tests to tell us what's going on? And if they did, what are the results? But more than that, as it relates to the Prime Minister and his being infected with COVID-19, what is the treatment being given to him to ensure his recovery? I remember when Donald Trump was infected with COVID-19, the entire cabinet was tested. And everyone came out and said out via Twitter, whether it be Kellyanne Conway, Ted Cruz, or whoever came out and say, I've been tested positive for COVID-19. I'm not going to go the quarantine period. I have yet to hear from anybody who was tested and who is even tested positive and what steps are being taken. Donald Trump doctors came out on a daily basis to update the nation as to what treatment was being given to the President of the United States. And I've said this in the last podcast. Here in Trinidad and Tobago, this Prime Minister has yet to even tell the nation what is being done, what treatment is being. You see, folks, are we supposed to believe that the Prime Minister is just lying on his bed, no antibiotics, nothing being done to him, and he's going to pull through this just like that? Is that what we're supposed to believe? Given his condition, his medical condition, really? Trump was in much better health than this Prime Minister, and they pumped Trump up with so much of antibiotics and all different treatments that they had undergoing to get him well. But this Prime Minister is going to lie in his bed and get better, really? We're supposed to believe that? And then you wonder why people said that this Prime Minister is allegedly COVID-19 19 positive? Really? But more than that, one of the most ridiculous policies coming out of this whole regulation is that you're allowed to go to visit the Boca Reef and to visit the Island Pool, but you can't play no music. Because apparently, COVID-19 is attracted to music. Is that the logic? Is that the science? Is that the word science ringing around there? Are we supposed to believe that? I have not heard about one person being infected in a movie theater, about one person being infected by going to the beach. But yet, those are the places that you're locking down. But those who defend these stupid regulations will come and say that at the end of the day, it's trying to restrict gathering. Well, if you're trying to restrict gathering, go outside there and see what's taking place on a daily basis. No one cares anymore. The folks out there, they get it. They understand that this is just a game. They're tired about it. They're tired because wherever they go, they're hearing about this one was COVID-19 infected, and all they do is that they wipe the place down fast, and very next day you come back out to work as normal. So nothing has happened. And then you want to talk about COVID-19 and regulation, restrictions, sanitizing. They know what's going on. The folks out there get it. This is just a joke for them right now. And if it is that you really having this spike taking place, and where's the spike coming from? I read where they have tested 120,000 people, which is pretty good in on itself. But is that the reason why we're getting more cases? As Donald Trump would always say, you test more, you get more. And there's nothing wrong with getting more cases because you need to know where you stand. You need to know exactly what positions you are in as it relates to COVID-19 and people being infected. It's a good thing. But tell us what's going on. Come on and just tell the folks what's taking place. So we're in a spike right now. And what is attributed? What is it? What is causing the spike? Because as far as I know, we're all wearing masks. And if we're all wearing masks as, they forced upon us via Parliament, and we still have a COVID-19 spike, then maybe is it that masks doesn't work as well as they think that it does? Huh? Or is it that instead of you trying all these regulations and all these forced measures on the folks out there. Maybe you should try and let folks understand that, you know what, your health is part of your responsibility as well. You have to take an interest in your own health and stop trying to force things down people's throat, because people never respond to force. And that's just a fact. But we continue along these lines and we hide behind the word science. As soon as you ask them a question, they say science, and you're supposed to run and get frightened and stand clear because they're talking about science. Who are you to question science? But yes, science has always been based on what guidelines came from the World Health Organization, an organization that is corrupt to the bone, that is of no value, that is in bed with China from the beginning. If you are sourcing the World Health Organization guidelines as science, then you are miles away from what's taking place, from the reality of the situation. Because that organization is not about science. That organization is about pure politics, like any other political party. And that has been exposed time and time again. It's time we get to the picture. Time we get to that. And understand what's taking place. So we've ordered 100,000 vaccines from China, or maybe Chinese government. I think they said they were going to donate 100,000 vaccines to Trinidad and Tobago. This was when we were supposed to get the 40,000 vaccines from India. And obviously, we did get the 40,000 vaccines from India, and we should be appreciative to the government of India for that kind contribution. But the 100,000 vaccines from China, apparently, the Chinese vaccine is nowhere near being ready. But we've already ordered 100,000. So if it is that we could order 100,000 vaccines from China, how is it possible that we couldn't put things in place to order X amount of vaccine from somewhere else? Vaccines that work. Pfizer, for example, sadly the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is now on hold. But still, what are we doing? And every single time these people come on TV, it's all about taking away some of our rights. It's time that the media people ask these people, what is it going to take to give us back our rights, our freedoms, our liberty? What is it going to take? What benchmark do they want to achieve? Do they want to achieve 80% vaccination in Trinidad and Tobago? Is that what they want to achieve? Huh? And if you want to achieve 80% vaccination in Trinidad and Tobago, then what are you doing to get a vaccine to achieve 80%? That number. What other benchmark and guidelines do you want to get out of this lockdown? What other benchmark do you need to open back the borders? Because the borders closed right now, folks, and it's creating a pressure cooker in this country. People are getting frustrated. Can you imagine when they open back the borders, the amount of demand that it's going to have for foreign currency for people to get out based on the level of unemployment? Because if you can't get jobs in Trinidad and Tobago, then people are going to want to leave in droves, because staying here and doing what? It's best to go outside there and get something. The demand that's going to place on foreign currency based on what is not available in Trinidad and Tobago anymore in terms of foreign currency. Do you know what's going to happen? And I sometimes wonder if it is that we are part of getting vaccinated, and that is that when I get vaccinated, I don't have to wear the mask anymore. And if I still have to wear the mask, then what is the point of being vaccinated? What is the policy as it relates to after you've been vaccinated? Do I still have to wear the mask? Huh? No one asks those questions. No one asks what's going on or what's taking place in that along those lines. But we continue. We continue to play the game, the whole COVID-19 phobia game. We pick winners and losers in industries. I mean, this time in-house dining restaurants lose again, but cinemas, they kind of win, because they can open, but the concession can't sell anything. So you have to go to the cinema and you can't buy popcorn, because you know what? If you buy popcorn, you might get COVID-19. And if you go to the beach, you might get COVID-19 in the open. But strange enough, you can sit down in a maxi taxi, but you can't get COVID-19 from that confined space. Huh? It's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting that you can reduce the gathering from 10 to 5 people, but walk into any of those ministries and you tell me how many people you're seeing. You see, all these regulations, all this talk from Dr. Parashuram, Minister Hines, Dr. Hines, Dr. Trotman, whoever, it's just that it's just pretty talk to make you believe that they're doing something. But when you the folks out there know very well, because you can see it for yourself, nothing is being done. The only thing that's happening right now with these regulations is that people are losing their jobs. Frustration is building in the society. They're creating. Trinidad has now become so divided, and we get to that in a while. But Trinidad has become so divided. The party politics has led us to become so divided. That is the only thing that these regulations are created. Nothing else. Because the spike has returned. The borders are closed, but yet the spike is still there. From a point in time when there were 2 cases to today being Sunday being 120 something cases and how many more deaths? Your policies are not working. It's time to do something different. It's time to get the vaccines, folks. It's time to get this entire country vaccinated, and it's time to open back the borders. But we'll see how it goes. We'll see what they intend to do along those lines. So moving on now, we've spoken about the Prime Minister being the super spreader and beaches being closed. I want to go on to something else that caught my attention recently. So I've spoken about the Children's Authority when those 2 kids, I call them kids because they were 15 and 16 years old when they're actually teenagers, but still, they had their entire life ahead of them and they were shot, murdered in Laventille. And the reason why I bring it back up for is because I saw where Senator David Nackett asked a question, and he was told that the Children's Authority, from since 2016 to now, was given $378 million to take care of just over 950 old children. That works out to $80,000 per child per year. You trying to tell me that this Children's Authority had $378 million and they can't fix a hole in a burger prison? That 2 kids had to escape, it's 5 kids had to escape and 2 had to be murdered? But yet the entire board of the Children's Authority has not tendered their resignations yet. The minister has not even properly addressed what's taking place with the Children's Authority with regards to these 2 kids, or with regards to the director of the Children's Authority. Nothing. We can't hear anything about it. But $378 million of taxpayers' money was invested in the Children's Authority to ensure that the kids that we put there, or the state put there, or the state take a responsibility to take care of, are well taken care of. And we have a hole in a burger prison with the knowledge of the board of the director of the Children's Authority, and children escaping and getting murdered. And we take that as normal and just continue to move on. But okay, this is just Viewpoint, the Brian Heeraman podcast, bringing this to your attention. But let's move on. Something else, something that I have been following quite a while. And it brings me no joy to talk about this. But as it relates to the death of Andrea Barrett and the 2 men who were murdered, and I want to use that word, and I want to be very strong on that word. The 2 men who were arrested, detained, and murdered by police officers of a Special Operation Response Team. Murdered. So the Professional Standard Bureaus, that's a branch of the police office or the police service that's been investigating this whole this stain on the entire police service, and the entire police service. And they have questioned 20 odd officers from the special response, the team called SWOT. So let's just refer to the team as SWOT. So they have questioned 20 odd persons and the head of the unit as well, Inspector Mark Hernandez. So from the last incarnation, I believe it was under the Prime Minister Patrick Manneh. I went back and did some research. There was a similar team, a similar outfit of SWOT, the Special Anti-Crime Unit of Trinidad and Tobago, SWOT, SAUTT. And that unit, when the UNT government, Kamala Prasad government came into office, was disbanded because that unit under the Patrick Manneh administration and the then Major General back then was operating as a separate police unit within the police unit, an illegal entity operating under the Patrick Manneh administration. But it was disbanded when the UNC government came into office, because even the late Dina Sita spoke about this whole SWAT being a separate unit, not recognized under the Constitution, because the Constitution only recognizes the police service, not SWAT. SWAT officers being paid a whole bunch of different salaries and perks and all that stuff. So that unit was disbanded, thankfully. Now here we come again. The PNM is back into office. The Commissioner of Police, Gary Griffith, is now in the chair. And guess what? They have now set up SWAT. And SWAT is responsible for the murder of 2 people who were allegedly guilty of a crime. Now, we don't know if they were guilty. They were probably more than guilty. They were probably guilty of a bunch of other heinous crimes. Too much to mention. Probably can't even think about going through those crimes. But we would never know the truth because the officers of SWAT murdered those 2 people. Now, you were probably thinking the same thing that what everyone else was thinking about those 2 children who escaped and were murdered in Lamington. They were indisciplined, they were bad kids, they deserved to die, whatever. But those 2 men who were murdered under the hands of SWAT, police officers, those 2 men, they could very well be you. You could have been in accidental contact of those people and they would have come for you and they would have treated you the same way that they treated those 2 men. Yeah, murdered. I want to use this podcast, this platform, to call upon the Commissioner of Police, the Minister of National Security, to disband the Special Operation Response Team with immediate effect. That SWAT team is a stain on your shoulder. The pressure that should be coming along on the Commissioner of Police with regards to what transpired under this team of officers, should be above and beyond. It should be. I mean, how are we supposed to explain to international people, to investors, that we have a team of officers that operate above and beyond the law? What are we supposed to say to them? That we would do anything and everything to ensure we find those who are guilty, including murdering people? But enough of that. So, SWAT head now, apparently, they have detained them for I believe it was 2 or 3 days now, and they're questioning him. And it's now being stated in some quarters as how he's going to be charged. The head of SWAT, Mark Hernandez, the head of SWAT, may very well face charge of murder or probably even manslaughter. They may want to charge him with manslaughter because it's easier to get off the crime of manslaughter because the bar is higher to meet. But if they charge him, if the director of public prosecution put manslaughter charge on this Mark Hernandez, the head of SWAT, Inspector Mark Hernandez, SWAT head. If he's charged, do you know what that's going to be? I want to say to Inspector Mark Hernandez, I'm pretty sure that you didn't get the instructions to go after those 2 men the way you did. That instruction came from above you. I'm almost sure about it. I want to let you know that what they are doing right now to you is that they are burying you. They are going to throw the entire blame on you, and all the underlings who did whatever they had to do with regards to instructions, probably from you. We don't know if it's from you. They may have just lost their job. They won't serve a day in prison. But you, my friend, you as being the head, the law is going to hold you to task for it. And they're going to throw the entire book at you. And if those PSB officers, professional standard bureau officers, as good as they say they are, my friend, when they are finished with you, you won't see the light of day again. So I want to call upon you, if it is that you know fully well that anyone above you gave you a directive to go after those 2 men the way that you and your officers went after them, call the director of public prosecution and beg for a deal, because your life is practically finished. You won't see the light of day anymore when they're finished with you, and you're going to take the rap for something for instructions that you were just following in the heat of the moment because the nation wanted results. They wanted to know what happened to this child, and you and I both know what's going on. The folks out there know what's going on. You did what you were told to do in the heat of the moment, but now the dust is settling. And you know what? The dust is now settled completely, and guess who is standing? Just you. just you to take the rap for it. Just you. And you see the commissioner of police now coming out, something that I've been saying long ago, that he want errand cops to pay and not the state. All of a sudden, all the time, the commissioner of police was seeing it how police officers doing their job and, lawyers are evil, they're going to the court and getting money to the state. But no, the commissioner of police, because he is getting the pressure. He is getting the pressure. He wants errand cops operating outside of what is required in terms of the law to pay, operating negligent of the law to pay. That means you. That's a message for you. That's letting you, Mark Hernandez, know that if you did anything outside of the law, he is standing away from you. He's taking his side. What are you going to do? It's interesting times. Interesting times ahead. And I see the commissioner of police now talking about all of a sudden gun dealers placing ad in the papers, and he is saying he met with the gun dealers association, and he's letting them know he would rather they not advertise. If not, he may go to parliament. Really, commissioner of police? You will go to parliament? You? That's your job? I thought I was the Minister of National Security job. You still think you're the Minister of National Security, or are you the Minister of National Security? You will go to parliament to stop gun dealers from advertising? Isn't this a free country? Why do they have to consult you? They're not breaking the law. But in Trinidad and Tobago, the big stick approach rules. Rights are not respected. This gun dealer, dealer of weapons advertising in the papers, and then you want to threaten them not to advertise, and he's going to listen to you. So there's nothing about the rights anymore. So as soon as somebody does something that doesn't agree with any section or any division in Trinidad and Tobago, we run to parliament to pass a law. So when are we going to be mature enough to accept what's taking place? When are we going to be mature enough to respect the rights and freedoms of other people? Because you don't like it, you're going to pass a law, this a ban on advertising. You Commissioner of Police, you won't even leave that for your Minister of National Security to address? You will address that? Folks, it's going to be a very interesting week next week, because if these PSP officers are serious, and they are serious as people say they have with regards to doing their job, it's not going to stop at Mark Hernandez. It may even get higher than Inspector Mark Hernandez. We stay tuned, and I will continue to follow that topic, because trust me, the pressure coming down on this Commissioner of Police with regards to what transpired is going to be huge. Okay, enough of Inspector Mark Hernandez, or probably next week former Inspector Mark Hernandez. We don't know. But I'll continue to keep my eye on that case, because the implications of what's taking place in that case is huge. You're talking about 20 officers under the direction of Mark Hernandez. You're talking about Mark Hernandez, who's taking the instructions from the Commissioner of Police. You have to ask yourself, is he really taking his instruction from the Commissioner of Police? And if he was, anyhow, let's leave it. Let's wait and see what happens. We'll talk about him more next week. Right now, I want to talk about this entire Ancestors wars taking place in Trinidad and Tobago. The battle between who ancestor waiting for who. So in my last podcast episode, I dealt with a statement made by Minister of Agriculture's wife. I think her name was Camille Rambarat, whereby she said that her ancestors, being slaves, they were waiting for His Royal Highness Prince Philip for what he has done on his time in Earth with regard to slavery. And I said back then, that statement was a stupid statement. Forgive me. I want to say now in this podcast, in this episode, that statement that I made last time with regards to Camille Rambarat, the statement wasn't only stupid, it had no knowledge attached to it. It was ridiculous. And for a big person to make that statement goes to show the level of intelligence that she has. Now, I have always said on this podcast, I am a believer in free speech. I believe in free speech. I will fight for Camille Rambarat to continue to say these stupid things that she see, because at the end of the day, it will expose who she is to the folks out there. But you having your opinion does not deny me from the opportunity to talk about the ridiculous statements that you make. You can continue to say what you want to say. I have no problem with that. But I will continue to give my point of view on your statement. As with regards to this whole point about my friend Corey Shepherd Bob from the Corey Shepherd Bob podcast, he doesn't agree with what I said with regards to you know, I can't understand why she would make a statement with regards to her ancestors waiting for Prince Prince Philip. Well, there's a rationale for for the things that I say, because I think some people, they stand they stand in the middle of the forest and they watch up and they say, "Oh my God, what beautiful branches!" You know what? But they miss the entire point, because it's not about the branches; it's about the treetops. It's about everything else. It's about the bigger picture, and that's what people like Camille Rambert fail to realize. Because you've made that statement about ancestors waiting for Prince Philip, and now I'm seeing on online and in news in Facebook and wherever that how people are talking about um, former Senator Franklin Khan, and whose ancestors is waiting for who. They're talking about their ancestors are waiting for Franklin Khan for all the evils that he would have done with regards to Petrotrin, and how he has raped and plundered this country for God knows how many years. Delcy Rodriguez whole affair in Venezuela. The ancestors are waiting for what Franklin Khan did with regards to those things. The ancestors of Venezuelan people, for how he treated with Delcy Rodriguez with regards to enabling her to come here while the people in Venezuela are suffering. The ancestors, that is the level of when you make stupid statements like that, you open the floodgates for more ridiculous statements. And that is what I'm trying to show people. Yes, you're entitled to your point of view and to your opinion, but it has to be with some sort of logic and some sort of merit. You just can't say stupid things because it makes you say, it makes you feel, or it gets you attention. Now, the scary thing about Camille Rambert's position, and I listened to Corey address this point as well, is that they are going to educate their children to do better, to do the hard work, to put in the hard work, so that they can move forward in life. But the statement wasn't attributed to folks with intelligence. It wasn't. It was a statement made to the minds of people who who look upon to say that, oh, you know what, everything is someone else's fault. What do they say? They say, you know what, at the end of the day, no matter what I do, somebody holding me back. I got a late start in life. I got a late start in life, sorry. You know, Slavery was a late start for me. But I've made the argument, and I continue to say, don't tell me at how your late start in life has given you this um this backward process, this backward, it's preventing you from moving forward. Because I've seen other people move forward. Now, you may not have the same opportunities, but who does? Like Corey said, unless your parents have $1 million or some sort of financial capability to give you the head start you want, then the gross majority of us in this world had a step back. So Philip Alexander, when he came out with his huge statement and he's talking about how, you know what, he has no good thing to say about Franklin Khan. And in the end of his statement, you know how he ended his statement? Do you know how he ended his statement, Camille Rambert? Do you know what he said? He said, his ancestors are waiting for Franklin Khan. Now, where do you think he got that from? Huh? From your quote. You started that stupid game about whose ancestors is waiting for who. And anybody else who continue to encourage such rubbish statements about who ancestors is waiting for who, it will continue. It will never end. It will just serve to divide this society more than it's already divided. From since you made that statement to today being Sunday, the level of division that this country has faced is enormous. You cannot now come and correct Philip Edward Alexander for his ancestral statement, because you made the same thing. And if you could talk crap, then he could talk the same thing as well. But people with intelligence need to control what they're saying, their emotions. Bad things happen in this world. Bad thing happens to a lot of different groups in this world. But it shouldn't be a recourse or excuse to not to try and do the best that you can. The Holocaust took place. A lot of bad things took place in the world. But your attempt to use the statement to pinpoint it to generate emotional support is wrong. But the floodgates have already opened. You have opened the floodgates. And now we have to continue with this for God knows how long, for everybody talking about who ancestors waiting for who. So for this next week until the late senator is buried, Frank Lincoln is buried, you're gonna hear the ancestor wars continue. Now, Corey, Shepherd Bob podcast, he did talk about what I said, and I'm doubling down because I don't see it being right. I can't see this race war continuing being right. I can't see allowing someone to talk about the ancestors waiting for somebody else as to be a genuine statement. Why not have that thought and just keep it for yourself? Huh? And why are you only waiting, Camille Rambrat, for your ancestors only waiting for Prince Philip? Huh? You waiting for Robert Mugabe? For everything that he did to black people in Zimbabwe? Your ancestors waiting for him? And countless of other black. You see where we're going with this? You see where we're going? There's no end to these stupid statements. But why are you picking on just one section, on just one piece? Is it because what is your affection with Prince Philip? Huh? I know what it is, But I want to know why you cherry picking Prince Philip. Why even go down the road? Because you know exactly why you went down that road. And I'm saying again, it's wrong. We need to cut these ridiculous games out. And if you really want to help people, then just do that. Help people. Stop these race games. Stop these stupid ancestor wars. It's not going to benefit Trinidad and Tobago. It's not going to benefit anybody. It's only going to serve to divide this country even further. Okay, folks. I went over my time. I probably got carried away a little bit on some of these topics. But I had to say some of these things. Forgive me for going over my time. This is podcast number 38. And I hope you stay tuned and to join us on podcast number 39 next week as well. Remember, folks, this podcast is now available on Facebook as well. So you can listen to us on Facebook as well as the other platforms. And check out my friend Corey Shepherd Podcast. He is pretty good at what he does as well.